Enneagram 5s, I love delving into your world because you are such a mystery. You're so intriguing because you're a bit stealthy. You're hard to figure out. Now, I am an Enneagram 4. I lean heavier on my 3 side, but my 5 is a thing that I love accessing and love learning about. And over the years, I've gotten to explore my own internal world by understanding you guys better. Now, I am trying to match songs by Taylor Swift with an Enneagram number, so this is your turn. And I think I've picked a good song for you. It's a song with history, social commentary, symbolism, and a lot of investigation by Taylor Swift. And it also has, as its focal point, a house, which I'm going to get into that metaphor soon. Sometimes when I'm dealing with 5s, they just want the data, baby. Give me the data. Don't get too wrapped up in storytelling, Drew. Don't add layers of your own life into this. Just give me what I need so I can put it into the database, understand myself better, and move on. I'm not going to do that because I'm a 4. So just consider this part of you accessing your 4, the storytelling, the connection of emotion to a narrative. Okay. What many of you don't know about me is that I am a restaurant investor. I'm invested in a restaurant group here in New York City. All of our bars and restaurants are in the East Village. I live in the West Village, so I'll get on the bike today, ride over there, have a hamburger, some fries at Lions Bar on St. Mark's Street, right across from Sonny's Bar, which is also one of our brother bars. And then there's the Whalen, and then there's Madeline's Martini. And these are the 4 restaurant bars that I'm connected to in New York City. But this group just opened up a restaurant in Rhode Island, in a town called Westerly. The restaurant's called High Hope. Go, check it out. Tell them Drew sent you. They might not know who I am because I live down here, but I've gone a number of times and it's really beautiful. But the area is really beautiful, and it's one of the most exclusive parts of our country. Now, Westerly is folks like maybe you and I. I don't have a ton of money. I just have the right amount. But then there's some really wealthy folks. And Taylor Swift has a house in what's called Watch Hill. It's a part of Westerly. And her house is on this part of the land called High Watch. And the house is called Holiday House. Now, High Watch is the highest point in this area. She bought the house, I think, in 2013 or 14 for $17 million. It's worth about $21 million now. And this is a traditionally conservative area. Very affluent, often considered rigid, exclusive, a lot of people trying to be low profile. Now, as the years have gone on, it's gotten a bit less conservative, less rigid. But this narrative and this song that I'm going to talk to you about is called The Last Great American Dynasty. And Taylor picks out the previous owner of the house called Rebecca Harkness, and takes us into a metaphoric look at Rebecca's life in the 50s and 60s and Taylor's own life. Now, Harkness bought this house in 1964, I believe, so 50 years before Taylor bought it. And what we have in this narrative is Taylor's storytelling prowess. It showcases her level of investigation. So you 5s get where I'm going with this. I think more than any song, she goes into research mode. And then she brings in symbolism and metaphor. And so we're already intrigued. This can resonate with the 5 because she's not taking the easy road here with this song. She's tapping into her own intellectual depth, but I like that she's able to tell the story in a way we can devour. And you 5s know that sometimes you could be so in your head that when you're explaining something to us, it's like you're intellectually bullying us. And 5s who really tap into their empathy, their 4 wing, tend to be able to really translate information well, because they realize that we aren't all at a certain level of intellect, and that how can they reach the most people? And I think Taylor does that here. There's an emphasis on observation, of watching, of understanding her character and herself. And I think it really hits on the theme of isolation. Now, we also have societal misunderstandings. We have rebellion. And I'll get into that down the road, which I think is really powerful here for us. But she has this lyric where she says, holiday house out quietly on that beach for 50 years. Free of women with madness, their men and bad habits. And then it was bought by me. It's the loudest punctuation in the whole song. You really feel the weight of what she was building up to. That she bought this house because it has a history of a woman who was eclectic, who did things her way, who had a very strong sense of self and independence. So this resonates with the 5. The character, Rebecca Harkness, resonates with the 5 already. But this piece that I love is that it is about a house. Not primarily, but it's the backdrop. And what do we know about 5s? They need privacy. Their home is often a fortress of solitude. Internally, they have the same thing. They go to a place internally, often up here, actually. I'm doing this because I'm a 4 and I'm like playing with my heart here. But they can go to these different compartments in their head to get away from the world. Personal space is very important, and that social engagement can be a bear trap often for you guys. And that you getting the choice to opt out and pull away is often what you're looking for. So along with us 4s, you guys can be part of the withdrawal group, pulling back from the world to get space. And so this idea of a house that is the kind of an anchor of this whole song is your ground of safety. When you feel invaded, you can go to a house. And so Taylor is saying she bought this house for probably a number of reasons, but one of them is this connection to the history, this Rebecca Harkness character that I'll get into, but also because a house means so much to us. When we are getting bombarded by the world, when we feel our security is rocked and our stability is on shaky ground, we often go to a house, a space that is mine. And so 5s have this physically at times up here, and physically in places that they go to get away, their nooks, their crannies of the world. Okay, this is a lyrically complex song because there's a lot going on. But we, as I said, have the historical narrative, nuances of understanding history and how it relates to ourselves. So Taylor is relating to Rebecca and making the crossover between her and this character and uniting with her, but then seeing her as this power source of how she can live in the world. And that requires research of this character, Rebecca. And maybe you'll do your own research, jump on ChatGPT and ask about Rebecca Harkness. And that's the beauty of crafting a story. And I think 5s are often like they're in their books. And so if we can get into the intrigue and the layers of a person's history and understand how that affects that, it's awesome for us. So we have that. We have this historical narrative. We have a cultural commentary. Taylor is very much speaking about women being scapegoats, misunderstood, scrutinized, and that there is this defiant part of Taylor and Rebecca Harkness who aren't going the way that others have gone. They're blazing their own path. They're challenging norms. They're letting their intellect and the power of their brain and their heart meet, these two characters, and affect the world that they are in. So Rebecca Harkness becomes a philanthropist. She's involved in ballet and the arts and music and giving money to those and being involved in them as an artist. Then there's this symbolism that there's a biography tale of these two parallel characters. So there's a lot of things going on that we're having to wrap our heads around in this song, and that's why it's awesome for 5s, I think. Now, as a withdrawal type like 9s and 4s, we're always protecting ourselves, and that's where I want to start from, is this house as this backdrop. That when our energy is sapped, we want to go to a place, and we do this also with music, do we not? We go to music when the world seems a bit overwhelming or we are drained and we need a little juice. And so in this song, we have this house that will resonate with you guys. When your energy is whittling away and you guys are the quintessential introverts, you go to that safe place. But also we go to that safe place in music. It's why I love bringing these two worlds together, music and the Enneagram. We can learn so much about ourselves in this exploration. And music does save our lives a bit when we need it. And so do the lyrics. And so I hope that I communicate this well to you, that you fives understand yourself a bit, and those fours with the 5 wing, you guys get a little bit more understanding of why we might pull away. My name is Drew. I'm a psychotherapist here in New York City. If you want to do some work with me on the Enneagram, get in touch with me at drew@drewnewkirk.com. Please follow me on my socials. They'll be popping up and you can see them in the description. And as always, smash that subscribe button. Know what I'm going to be doing in the future. And I love that you're on the journey with me. It's been so cool to meet so many of you fives virtually and help you guys understand yourselves a little bit, and you guys help me understand myself a little bit. So let's get in it and see why this song is not just important to you guys and me, but that music and the Enneagram will save our lives a little bit when we need them. All right. This is a section I like to call Swiftly Typed, where we try to have a refresher on what it is that the Enneagram 5 struggles with, their core motivations, desires, fears, all of that, some of the strengths and weaknesses. For some of you, it's just a refresher. For some of you, this is new content. We move away from the song for a little bit. Maybe I integrate it a little, but then we ultimately try to get a background of the 5. We start with core motivations, which is to understand the world, to accumulate knowledge, to preserve autonomy. So the main motivation is the mastery of knowledge. And then there is this fear, the fear of being overwhelmed, depleted, but also not being intellectually ready, that I might be found out as intellectually inadequate. So this deficiency that I'm concerned about, so I need to over-prepare. And my boundaries, the control of my environment are important, so I can safeguard what I'm taking in and not be depleted by the world. So that's a core fear there. Core desire is to be competent. We value knowledge, mastery above all. And so my books are my friends. The content I take in is very important, and I have to really devote the right amount of time. So when 5s get frustrated with me for going into narrative or putting some context around some of the content that I'm delivering, it might be because the time is important. I have to download a bunch of information to make sure that I'm prepared for the world, that I don't get found out as inadequate. So there's due diligence, there's making my time valuable. And again, I don't want to be found out as not having the goods. So the heart can be shelved for the head. There's all kinds of jokes about 5, that they're walking heads, that they're sticks with heads, that everything is going on up here and it's harder to get down here. Now 4s are right next to them. And a 5 with the 4 wing, especially a strong 4 wing, will have, one, they'll be eccentric and quirky and often quite brilliant, but they have more access to that heart. Some of the strengths, they're highly analytical. This is obvious. They're perceptive. They're great observers, insightful. And so we brought this song to the 5 because I did. I don't have a team here, but I brought this song to the 5 because I think that is an intellectually curious place that Taylor's in that really aligns with a 5, where they think deeply and play with complex ideas. How do I take this character, Rebecca Harkness, this historical character, this socialite who has all these connections and is doing all these interesting things, but also is eccentric and is walking on the beach by herself and looks like she's contemplating life and deep in thought. And how do I relate this to myself, Taylor? and find the parallels there to bring a message of female empowerment, pushing against conformity. And so this house holds echoes, and this character holds echoes that are passed on to Taylor. And she's putting this into this pretty tight narrative, which really appeals to the 5. Now, the challenges are, listen, emotional detachment is going to be a problem. You can overdose and become inebriated on knowledge to the neglect of the heart. So they withdraw and avoid overwhelming people, situations, and therefore might not mix it up enough with what's going on down deep inside, and often have hard time accessing that, and have hard time accessing even what's going on in their body. So using their body and exerting their body and exercise and meditation, some levels of consciousness about what's happening here is important to them because they can get out of here. Now, those challenges to protect time and to protect energy and to protect that mental space have to be balanced with the heart, with the body, the gut. So yes, process that data, but then move into a place of rounding yourself out. I went out on a date with a 5 recently, and she and I were talking about how we spend our alone time. Now, as a 4, I spend an inordinate amount of time by myself. 5s are very similar. Common triggers for them are intrusive behaviors by others, people zapping their energy with the time that they're taking, and boundaries being crossed, and they want them to be respected. Now, you can be overly protective of those boundaries. And as we were going through the date, one of the things that sometimes surprises me is that as a 4, aloneness is such valuable time. I love it. I can be with myself for hours, but there's a melancholy that's always under the surface. There's always what am I missing out on? Some FOMO, some longing. That it's longing that I know that even if I was in the place that I kind of have an idea of wanting to be in, that I would feel alone there too. And this is why I think I'm a good therapist, why I connect to people, have a certain level of empathy and compassion. But she said she rarely feels that FOMO. She rarely feels isolated or lonely in it. And that is a very big difference between a 4 and a 5. Now, the 5 with the 4 wing or the 4 with the 5 wing are going to have those overlaps, but a 5 can really feel like they are not missing out on anything. That the thing that they're engaging in is the thing. And so if those are triggers, then a healthy 5 learns to balance the intellectual pursuits with emotional engagement. For 5s, you guys know this, that books and content can be your best friends. That you're building a relationship with them, and that retreat feels very relational, that you're connecting to the writers or the topic. But remember, us 4s, 9s, and you 5s are withdrawal types. We'll pull back, and we have to engage with the world so that what we are delving into, the stuff we're taking in, doesn't become overly comfortable in a zone in which we become protected, but that we use this into action, whatever we're taking in, and build relationships with others. It's important. We sometimes wonder why, because people are so hard, but is it important? So we have to move into that path of balance to recognize that emotional connection and collaboration can actually energize us and not just deplete us, and to find the right characters that works with, who respect our boundaries and who will add something to us. That we can thrive when we share and share insights and share emotions. I've met 5s who have said that emotions can surprise them. Things that happened in the past, maybe days or weeks or months or years before, pop up out of nowhere, and they have to find a compartment for them. And fives can be very good at compartmentalizing. And that with that emotion, they often have to pull it out of its compartment and let it live in the world and live with other people and be vulnerable around them. To not just analyze to protect, but observe and appreciate to build relationship. That often, somewhere in their life, because of maybe abandonment in their childhood, which feels like some kind of neglect, or they were psychologically smothered, they then retreat and become avoidant, and they have a type of avoidant attachment style. And part of the solution is maybe not doing what some of the numbers would do, which was immerse themselves in relationships, but to continue to take some risks in relationship, to step into them, to become more comfortable in that place where, yes, people will deplete us, but also will give some great resources to us. All right, that's swiftly typed. Maybe it wasn't as swift as I'd like it to be. Now we're gonna get into tailor-made. Why is this song so ripe with possibilities for the five? I've mentioned them in the beginning. Now I'll dissect them a little bit more, and then we'll move out. Tailor-made. What I love to do is have my tailortation, which is a meditation time, where I just dig into the song and listen to it over and over and over again. So I've probably listened to this 50 or 60 times, and then right before I do the video, I like to listen 5 or 6 more times to see if there's something that I didn't connect to right away. And in this song, it so sparks my curiosity, my intellectual engagement. That five part of me wants to know how we got here as humans. You know, I call fours originologists. They want to know the origin of things, the origin of themselves. And then when you really lean into your five wing as a four, you really start dissecting the history of things, what brought us here. And when we dive deep like that, the detailed exploration just gets us so geeky. So I really relate to the five in this way. And I found the story fascinating, that Taylor's giving us a very short song. Most songs are short. There's all these little clues about who this Rebecca Harkness person is. And each line has a curiosity to it. Like, there's this one line where she's talking about losing a card game to Salvador Dali. But it just says, losing a card game to Dali. Now, if you weren't listening well, or you hear it differently, you might have heard Dolly, like Dolly Parton. You just don't know who this person is. Now, if you go look at the lyrics, you see D-A-L-I. You go, what? Who? How does Rebecca Harkness have a relationship with Salvador Dali? Okay, it turns out they were good friends. Now, I don't think Taylor or Rebecca Harkness are very five-ish. They have components of the five. But of course, we have every number inside of us. So I try to look at, like, what's the five part in them? But actually, their histories don't really have a lot of five juice to it, because fives are going to be the last ones to raise their hand and be seen. They're in the shadows. They can be mysterious, like I said, withdrawn, hard to read, often can have like a blank look. Some people say that there's a kind of a dissociated look in fives that you can't really get a read. And so they tend to be people we project a lot onto, because, well, we know that they're smart, so they might really hit on our insecurities. Now, Rebecca Harkness is a socialite. She's a publicly scrutinized because she's a bit out there. She's a bit comfortable with herself. She's a character. She has an extravagant lifestyle. There's rumors that she used to scrub her pool with champagne. Very avant-garde, hung out with artists of all kinds, and gave lots of money to one of her favorite loves was ballet. So here in New York City, there is, her name is on things in the Upper East Side around the arts, even though she's been passed for a long period of time, since the 80s. Now we have this house that stands witness to Rebecca's lifestyle, all the parties she had, all of the things that were going on there, all of the maybe rendezvous in the pool house, the men that she had over, the different relationships, the different friends that were coming and sharing interesting ideas. And as a 5, we're watching and we're curious about that. And we might be on the sidelines just taking a peek, and we wish we were a fly on the wall in those moments, just like we might wish we were a fly on the wall at one of Taylor's parties. She has these Independence Day parties at this house in Rhode Island. And we might want to see what's going on there so we can just understand the world a little bit better, because we love to dive deep. Now, one of these components of this story I think is so powerful, and maybe a missed opportunity if you are not tapping into the intricacies of the 5. What we know about the 5 is when they are in a healthy place, they look a lot like, well, they don't not look like an 8, but they have an 8 component to them. In their high side, they move into action with their knowledge. They're bold. They can be rebellious or have an eye on what is going on in society that needs change, and move towards that with boldness, courage, strength. They do. They don't wait. They don't sit back too long. They move towards activity. That's when they are at their healthiest. So what we see with this song is not only Rebecca Harkness being bold in this very conservative environment where she was scrutinized there in Watch Hill, she still had the ability to be herself and move towards causes and people that she cared about. While eccentric, she let societal judgment move to the background and let her conviction move to the foreground. And we see Taylor in this song saying, I want to do the same. I want to follow in Rebecca's footsteps, that I am going to bring myself to this environment with power and strength and boldness. And I'm going to be the woman I know I am meant to be. And whether I'm judged or alienated, or seen as not fitting societal norms, or not being a good girl, being quiet, because we know Taylor has the temptation to be good and right and nice. She's mentioned this. That she moves towards a place of independence and power. She speaks to power. And so here is the 5 moving towards an 8, saying, there's causes. I'm going to be a bit defiant. I'm going to be in action. And screw expectation. I'm going to live authentically. And what's watching? This house. The house is standing witness. The house is moving from era to era of strong women taking their position there and owning who they are. We love, I think, this metaphor of the house as this foundation for us, both physically and emotionally. There's this one lyric that just pulls me in each time because I relate so much to it, specifically at places like beaches, where I walk in solitude, I reflect, I think, I collect my ideas, and I start to put them into categories. You know, 5s are really good at compartmentalizing. It could be a blessing and a curse. They have different rooms for different ideas and different thoughts, and often they'll put an emotion somewhere and shut the door. And yes, they need to open it up and look at that emotion. But let's just worship and praise at the feet of solitude because we love it so much. This line, they say she was seen on occasion, pacing the rocks, staring out at the midnight sea. It just resonates so much that the 5 wants to attend to the construction and form of language for themselves. What words will they use? Where will they place those words to understand a thing more? And when healthy, find a way to communicate ideas and help other people grow. Now, when unhealthy, can use what they've taken into themselves in their solitude, in their alone time, and make a weapon of it. And they can be intellectual bullies. But when they take a lot of time on that path, strategizing, which is a gift, a strength, and preparing, calculating, that time is so fruitful when they pull away. Contemplating the vastness of the sea mirrors the introspective quality of a 5. Thoughtful. Highlights their connection to the intellectual and the existential. What am I here for? What's important? How do I prefer certain things to others and highlight them? How do I deselect certain things so I'm not cluttered? And how do I take the superficial, put it over here, and then work with the ideas that are important? This is such a strength and needs to be valued and understood. It's why I wanted to end this section of the lyrics on this part of what we love to do as a 4. Same. I love my nooks. I love to go to them. I like my beaches that are isolated. I bought land in Mexico. Haven't built on it yet. But there is a beach that people don't tend to swim in because the waves from the Pacific are just too strong. And so on this beach, you might see 1 or 2 people there in the morning, 3 or 4 at most. And you can just walk with your headphones on and think about these ideas we have playing in our head. And what can we do with that? Marvelous things can come from how our brain is putting pieces together. Now, Claudio Naranjo warns that 5s would rather be reading than live. That they can really get stuck in living in that solitude with ideas. And that's the warning. But let's remember the strength and revel in it. Because there's nothing I like more than connecting with a 5 and paddling back and forth ideas. It's so awesome. All right, we are going to end with what I call Endgame, based on one of the titles of Taylor's songs. And I tell you in advance, thank you for joining me. Let's end with this piece right here. Last Great American Dynasty is a powerful song for us. For 5s, remember this, that it's about rebellion, solitude, the richness of life, legacy. Oh, 5s, legacy is so important. And one of the reasons is because you have so much to offer. And one of the weaknesses, not coming to a place of action with that, to just be taking in, and putting things in compartments. Now, we also are prone to put emotions in compartments, that often some kind of early childhood missing piece or trauma caused you to organize your pain in a response of pulling back and withdrawing. It's a defensive mode, putting things in the compartments and isolating. And while your brain loves a blast of content, also it needs to be joined with emotion that helps you move boldly into the world. And often for you, emotions can be lagging behind. That's okay as long as you get better and better and better at being creative with your emotions, learning them. And so I hope that your legacy is one of healthy rebellion, appropriate isolation, bold vulnerability. I'm just making this up, so just track with me here. And the interplay of all of them so that you have a more meaningful, full life. I pray that for myself as well. Again, my name is Drew, a therapist here in New York City. Love to work with my Enneagram friends, so if you want to reach out to me, it's drew@drewnewkirk.com. And as I always say at the end of every video, in the words of Rainer Maria Rilke, who was definitely a 4-wing 5 or a 5-wing. No, he was a 4-wing 5, but it had a really heavy 5. Everything is yet to be done. Everything. Go boldly, my friends. You are competent, and the world needs you. Much love to all you 5s.